Guts and Grit Podcast. A podcast where we discuss overcoming the odds, resiliency, and never giving up. Join us each week as hosts John Melson, Joy Vatrabek, and Mark Renahan discuss coming back from failure and never quitting. Guts and Grit, it's go time.
Welcome to the Guts and Grit Podcast. I am your host, Mark Renahan. We are on episode 4. Of course, I am with my lovely co-host, Joy Vatrabek. And of course, coming to us over the Zoom, as always, Sergeant John Melson. How are you, Johnny? All right. Well, today we're doing great, John. It's always good to have you here. The first 3 episodes on your biography of your life was amazing. We want to thank you first for sharing that with us. And so today we're jumping on to our very first special guest, who is a return guest for Joy and I. So I'm going to let Joy tell you a little bit about today's guest.
Today's guest is Sean Pierce, and for those of you who might have seen our podcast on Remembering 9/11 20 years later, he talked about his story surviving the Twin Towers. Sean, if I remember correctly, you were on the 73rd floor of the North Tower when the first plane hit. And
we were the second hit.
Second hit, yeah. Sorry, second hit, thank you. And made it all the way out, 73 flights of stairs later. And I understand that you had some obstacles from that experience that you had to overcome in your life. So if you care to share your story on that.
Yeah, Sean, for those who haven't seen, our earlier podcast, and for John who doesn't know your story, maybe you could go over briefly from, when you were working at Morgan Stanley up in the tower and go from there. And again, Sean, we appreciate this. I know this is not a topic that you love talking about. And it's just, I know John doesn't love talking about his battles all the time either, but I appreciate the both of you coming on and sharing your lives with us. So, Sean, go ahead, brother.
So, not to recant the whole entire story, I had got down to about the 33rd story, and that's when our building got hit. And the building literally went from, the left side to the middle, to the right side, to the left, to the middle. It kind of, it really got hit hard, and we thought it was going to snap. Everybody that was in the stairwell literally took me off my feet, which is no easy task. I'm about 6'4", 240, 50 pounds, whatever, and it literally, I had to grab the staircase to not fall down. So anyway, we had gotten out, and long story short, there were a lot of mental challenges. I feel like, guys like John, they know what they're getting into when they sign up for the military. And we appreciate everything you guys do. And I mean, it really, because of September 11th, I feel like I have a pretty strong connection to a lot of the guys in the military. I've got friends that, I see your U.S. Army flag in the background and the Marines, and I've got a friend who did both also. He did 10 years in the Marines and 10 years in the Army. And he was, one of the guys that helped me out the most because he kind of had a little bit of a dark sense of humor, which helped me kind of, laugh a little bit about some of the things. Because there were times when, honestly, I thought, I'm not going to kill myself, but, if I died, it'd be no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I had a really hard time for the first, bunch of years. Like I said, it wasn't suicidal, but if I died, I died. It didn't matter to me.
So, Sean, not to cut you off, but and that came from a lot, like you lost a lot of friends, that you worked with when the plane hit. And, I know you were telling me, either in the last show or when we talked privately, that like you used to have pizza with the firefighters outside and things like that. So losing a lot of those people was a traumatic event, I'm assuming, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know those guys, but, going back to that story, we would go for our 4 o'clock slice every day. So every day the stock market bell would go, and we'd all go take a walk and, walk around Manhattan. We'd get either like an Italian icy or a slice of pizza or whatever, and then go back and work for a couple hours and go home. So anyway, we kind of sort of got to know those guys. It wasn't like, hey, how you doing, John? But it'd be like, hey, how you doing, guys? You know what I mean? And, as I was coming down the stairs, seeing them coming up, and I knew these guys are not coming down, and I can still see some of their faces ingrained in my brain. You know what I mean? Like I literally can, because I knew they weren't coming down, and I knew it was terrorism right away. There was no question in my mind. So, there was a huge connection to that. And like I said, to me, there was a connection with the military. I've got, like I said, a bunch of friends that are in the military, and some of them would call me and just say, hey, man, you got to get some coloring books, because, again, like, I feel like when you're deployed, you train for this, you dream about this, you know exactly what you're going to do. That wasn't in my game plan. You know what I mean? I was coming to work one day and, was having a cup of coffee, just booting my computer up like I did every single day. And all of a sudden, boom, it got hit. So, there was a level of safety that just gets taken from you. And, after that, no matter where I was, the first thing I was doing was looking, and I wasn't telling anybody this. This is all going on between my ears. But my brain was going nonstop. It was like if I was in a stadium, where are the exits? How am I going to get out? If I'm in a building, crap, I have to stay on the 20th floor for work. I would just have to get really, really drunk to be able to go to sleep because I couldn't sleep. I had too much anxiety. And I had a real corporate gig back then. At the time I was in pharmaceuticals, and I come back to Boston, and I remember being I was either in Boston or New York for a meeting, and it wasn't too far after September 11th, maybe a couple of years, but I'm higher than I'd want to be, and all of a sudden there's a fire drill. And everything's flashing, and the sirens are going off. And as you can imagine, that's not very cool with my brain. It took me years and years and years to work this stuff out and to know where my comfort zone was. I can go into a hotel now and go up high. I can take a plane. There was times when. Actually, not times, every time I took a plane, I'd tell the person, like, I can't be alone with my own thoughts. I'm going to have to talk to you the whole time. I'm really sorry. I can't. If I shut my eyes and if I put the headphones on, I'm going to lose my mind. So I had to talk the whole time, and, I'd make jokes and laugh and, talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, but I couldn't stop. And I'm not kidding either. There was a lot of things in the beginning where I grew up around an air base. I still live around an air base down near Otis Air Force Base. So we had planes going over us all the time. And every single time a plane would go by, it would feel like when I was dead asleep, okay, was not conscious, my muscles would tense up so bad that it felt like the muscles were going to rip off the bone. And in the morning, I'd be sore as if I'd worked out like a lunatic. And that was like the fear that, was in my head, you know what I mean? And that's not a normal reaction. I've got a million stories like that in the early years. Jets flew over at the Falmouth Road Race, and I jumped and, kind of almost crashed. There was another time where, again, in a dead sleep, thunder hit, and jumped over my wife, and I remember my face hitting. I wasn't awake even. My face hit the wall, and I woke up crying. Not knowing what was going on. I had no clue because I was in a dead sleep. I'm sure these are some of the stories that John, you might be able to relate to. Hopefully, you don't. Hopefully, I sound like a complete lunatic.
Well, Johnny, John, when you hear Sean talk about, and this is what caught me, Sean, when you said like I wasn't trained for this. Like, like John spends, from what the picture there tells me, John trains pretty much all day for combat almost. But I know, you know what I mean, Johnny. But Johnny, can you maybe touch a little bit on like the differences? Because, again, like John trains his men. And there's a great article that one of the best stories about John that I love is that one of your groups of men, John, were in trouble. You weren't there. You flew in on a helicopter, and when you got off, your guys were like, we were more afraid of John yelling at us, like letting him down than, from our training, then, we suddenly rallied. So the training that the military guys go through is just, it's incredible that it lets them do stuff. But Johnny, do you want to maybe touch a little bit on like some of the training you do that might prepare you and just if you've had any incidences? I know you've lost, I don't even want to get into it, but, I know you've lost guys and you've had some bad, you had to have had some bad thoughts. And from those of us who've heard the first 3 stores, your early life was just, something that a lot of people might have given up. Just like you said, Sean, like, I'll die, I don't care. But you want to touch on that, Johnny?
Sure. And Sean, I want to really thank you, man, from the bottom of my heart, man, to share your story with all of us here and put it out there. What I don't want to do is cause you in this conversation, this opportunity to talk to you, to cause you to relive it, right? Those bad times. What I've been picking up on is while you're conscious, your coping mechanism is to be able to keep your mind occupied by like talking to that person sitting next to you. And I look at it as a means of staying engaged in the reality right there. So you don't have to get caught up in those thoughts, right? And then your mind just takes you to a bad place. And I can relate to that. As Mark makes jokes about how much time I invest in training and everything, it keeps me busy, right? So I don't have to think about and relive those moments over and over and over in my head that are terrible from our past, right? That's things that we endured and went through. But there were some things I really want to ask. I'm looking forward to asking you, Sean. Because I'm going to say, as far as you, just as a human being, not just because I'm a soldier and what you do for a line of work as human beings. Were you married and had kids and family or anything at that time when 9/11 happened?
No.
Okay, so
I was 28. I was 28 years old, and just working and doing my thing.
Yeah, and so like when all that happened, the shock and awe, and everything's going on, and are you a religious person?
Yeah.
So a lot of those times like that, when I found myself in bad situations, a lot of things I just would think about was like Mark knows in previous episodes, I put a lot of emphasis on my family. Like I got to make this out for my family. I got to make this out. I had faith in a higher power, right? Me and Mark were Catholic. I don't know your religious preference.
Yeah.
So there was things that would go through my head in those worst of times. They were like, you know what? Like this is where I'm meant to be. I gotta resort to methods to get through this. And I used all those belief systems of having, the belief in my family, belief in my religion, stuff like that, to go ahead and try and push through and not let the shock and awe of the traumatic event prevent me from taking action, right? And I think, you as a survivor, I would say that there's some of that you can relate to as well, which, instead of just freezing up and becoming.
Well, it's funny. It's funny, John, because I think I think that I'm probably a more stressed person than the average person, but in really stressful situations, time slows down for me. So like I don't know how much Mark told you about my story, but I actually saved somebody that day because there were people that were like a deer in the headlights. And so one of the girls I grabbed, she was one of the assistants, and she's like, didn't know what to do. And she had on these huge heels, and we had to go downstairs with, slip resistant staircase, like sandpaper, right? Heavy duty sandpaper. So if she took her shoes off, her feet would have been bleeding in, 2 or 3 flights. We had to go down 73. So, I grabbed her and I picked her up 8 billion times, and every time she fell down, I picked her up. She fell down, I picked her up. So, as far as, the actual day, the only time that I kind of get scared was when our actual building got hit, and I did make the sign of the cross and I said to God, this is it. This is how I'm going to die, huh? And, I was lucky enough to get out. And then, years later, I said, man, was I lucky enough? Because maybe I shouldn't be here, Because I had a really tough time, a lot of tough uphill years. And it's like, again, the military guys know when they're going off to Afghanistan, where they've had these thoughts already. Of what happens if, right? Like you've thought of these things before, and I hadn't thought of any of these things. You know what I mean? None of these things were, going to be part of my world as far as I was sitting up, in an office with an air conditioning and a lot of the things that you don't have being out in the sandbox, right?
Right.
So, it just wasn't. It's like, I guess the way that I can describe it is I think you guys were mentally prepared, but also it's like if you go to Afghanistan, that's your danger zone, right? But you probably also know when you come home to Milton or wherever you live that, it's going to be all right. This is your safe place, right? Yeah. I came home, and then what happened to Boston?
Yeah, with the bomb.
Then there was the Boston bombing. So I can't tell you how messed up that made my head, right?
Very good, Sean. We had a big talk about no swearing beforehand. Good job, boys.
Sorry.
That's okay. You did well. Sean, we appreciate it, man. I know you hate going through this, so I know this is a tough thing. But sometimes it's good to talk about it. Not to cut you off, but Johnny, I got a question for you. I can tell when Sean gets a little. I've talked to Sean about this, but I know you've gone through. I don't want to get into it. So many losses of troops and soldiers and all that. You have any secrets that you like to do if you're having Sergeant Melson's having a bad day, he's thinking about whatever. Do you have any secrets that you use to kind of get over the hump to get yourself moving again?
I don't know if it would be able to apply to everyone else. I probably have 1 or 2 screws loose upstairs. But what we're doing right now, all of us sitting here with a smile on our face and laughing, I try and find humor in some of the most ridiculous things. And I find that there's a lot of healing and a lot of strength, recouping strength with the ability to be able to laugh. Like there's not a thing that you could laugh about, I'm sure, as you guys try to make your way out of the building, right? Just like some of the ambushes I've been involved in where I've lost friends. Like I can't laugh about that incident, but other things in my day, I can go ahead and laugh about it and try and help myself get out of that dark place, right? And I'm sure.
I think I told Mark a story where on September 11th, we're here it's not like today where everybody has a cell phone in their hand and there's a flat screen TV everywhere, right? So we're hearing all kinds of crazy stuff in the streets. I mean, in my mind, we're getting carpet bombed in every major city in the whole country. Because I'm hearing that, it was Pennsylvania got hit. I heard Brooklyn got hit. And I'm like, Brooklyn? Like, that's all residential. Like, why would they hit Brooklyn? So anyway, my funny story that kind of helped me out was I walked into I walked past a barbershop, and some Asian lady came out and gives us a bottle of water, which was awesome because we just come down 73 flights of stairs, and I was thirsty. And then I look in the barbershop, there's a guy getting his hair cut. Here I'm thinking it's the end of the world. I'm thinking the Bible. I'm thinking like, God's going to come down and the whole world's going to be flattened and flames and fire and dragons and whatever. And this guy's just like, I'm going to go out looking good. You know, he's getting his hair cut. He's like, I'm going to look fresh to death on the last days, you know, and that's, I couldn't believe it. You know, I'm like, jeez, look at this. This is unbelievable.
John, do you get your hair cut a lot in tough situations before? I noticed that, you keep your hair nice and tight.
Well, I'm going to say I have a savings account just from where I used to spend on my hair products and my haircuts. I have money put aside that I'm going to invest in the 401k.
You're rich now.
No, well,
I have a question for Sean, actually.
Go ahead,
Sean,
Joy.
I have a question for you, actually, along the same lines as John had mentioned, and you said to, alluded to, that humor has helped you. Is there anything else that has helped you overcome talking it out?
You know something? It's funny. I went to it, like I said, in the early days, I went to a million different psychologists, psychiatrists, like you name it, drugs I was on, whatever. Honestly, the guy that helped me out the most was a friend of mine in the military, talking to him and talking about, what he'd been through and, what his thoughts were like. And he's got a dark sense of humor, and that helped me out a lot. We had a lot of laughs, but a lot of things we could relate, as a kind of like shell-shocked, person going through it. I had no one I could really talk to, because everybody reacts differently, and me, I went through the whole thing and didn't show one emotion, but it hit me later on, and I had friends that, it didn't affect them at all, and to me, it screwed me up, because it's like your whole level of trust is gone. It's like, well, if I can get attacked sitting down having a cup of coffee, it can happen anywhere, right? So it's like, and like I said, when the Boston bombing happened, it that really kind of set me for, a loop. And like I said, John, that's not to say that I was in a loony bin or anything like that. That never happened.
I pushed to have them put in one, but they wouldn't let me. They actually said, we don't take applications from previous patients. But anyway, go ahead, Shawno.
Could have been probably, but no, I put my smile on and did, went to work every day. And a lot of people had no idea what was going on, between the ears, you know what I mean? But it happens. And, the brain was always spinning. It was hard to get it to slow down. And I think only time did that.
Okay, but even though it's only time, would you say now you have overcome, obviously I know that like September 11th's never going to leave you. Like with John's battles will never leave him. I mean, it's something that both of you, I'm not that being asked here to tell you to his faces, but I think you both know that's something that you're both going to carry. It's a part of your life. But do you feel that now, like, I can't even imagine that day, Sean. Like, I even though you've told me the story and I've heard it from others, unless you lived it, it's like the same with John. I'll never know what it's like to be in a firefight with the Taliban in Afghanistan. You can try to imagine it, and you can watch all the movies, but only the guys who have done it or the gals who have done it are going to know about it. It's the same with that. But today, do you feel like you've overcome that with perhaps a little guts and grit? Yeah. Hey, I got it in there.
I do.
No, you do, huh? No, but I mean,
I'm telling you, like the early days were really tough. I mean, it felt like this is how I can make you understand what I felt like. It felt like somebody had a fire hose and was blasting blood through my body. That's what it felt like all the time. There was no slowing down. And my wife would think I was a complete maniac. I'd get up 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes and go for a 5-mile run. And she'd be like, what the heck are you doing? And in the beginning, she would be nervous because I was out there, and she knew something was bothering me and stuff like that. And after a while, she just let me go, because then that was better. That was much better for me just to go do my thing and not get kind of harassed for it. In the beginning, she'd be like, well, I'm nervous, and it kind of made things worse, because it's like, anyway, that's how I kind of coped. It's just, I'd go for runs and
Well, as John likes to say, you train to be hard to kill, and so you go for runs and you do push-ups. Johnny, I got a question kind of for you. So, again, I know that you've been out there, and we've talked now. It's 9 tours, and you've gone through a lot. Do you ever have any issues? And I know you say you get over them with humor and stuff like that, but do you use anything else to just kind of power your way through? I mean, I know also that. I know you're a real leader in the terms of you like to lead from the front. You want all you guys to show, to see that this is what you should be doing. Do you have any advice for any other younger, either soldiers or guys like Sean or anybody out there who's going through a really tough time on how to kind of maybe get through it?
Well, it's kind of a multifaceted question, right? So there isn't, like I mentioned, Sean, just a minute ago, we can find some humor in the dark humor side of it, right? We laugh and we can find healing and strength in that to try and get us through it. But as far as to totally, like Mark, what you have endured, it doesn't go away, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Right? That's always going to be a part of us. Anyone that's experienced any kind of traumatic event like that doesn't go away. Right? But as time goes on,
it dulls.
What's that, Sean?
It dulls.
It dulls.
It dulls. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It does. It's not. It doesn't cut as sharply as it did when it first happened. And what it does is at times, if you can, like Sean, I would say the times I'm out, I got a rucksack on my back and I'm out. I'm trying to do like 12 miles under 2 hours or something. Right? You're out running your 5 miles. It's a chance to get out there and kind of assess. Right? It's not so much you want to, for me, it's not so much I want to relive the horrible event, but it's like, okay, so this is where I'm at. This is what took place. I can't change the past. And as I'm moving forward, like, hey, how is this going to impact me the rest of today into tomorrow? And, I look at that and I try and look for ways, like I said, as an assessment to go ahead and be like, all right, well, I don't want to fall back there because I can get caught up in my thoughts and I don't want to be there. So all of a sudden the fatigue's hitting it, right? The muscle burning's kicking in while I'm out doing my PT and it keeps my mind off of that. But then when I have the opportunity to talk to younger soldiers or as well as, like Sean, you said, sharing the experience with your buddies that were in the military because they had more of an idea to be able to relate to, right? When I talk to my buddies that served with me on my left and right, whether it's a phone call or a text message, like I reach out to check on them and then next thing you know, it's like what we call a buddy check.
Yeah.
And it turns into a conversation and those laughs and those jokes start coming up and I know they're good. They know I'm good. And it's like, all right. And those types of things help you get through it, Mark. Having those, what we'd call support networks. But in the civilian world, some of it is just calling them our buddies, right? Your friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, another military guy that Mark knows would call me all the time with those types of calls. Lee Power, right?
Yeah, of course. Cool. I was about to say Sergeant Power.
Yeah, so Lee would call me and he'd make some jokes and say, you got to get some coloring books. And because that's what he would do. That was like the therapy that helped him. And he lost a lot of guys in battle. So, he was helpful too. I guess it was just helpful to know that other people have been through something like that. And, the amount of anxiety I had it was bad.
You think, I think about like everyone gets anxiety, right? Like there's nothing against, there's nothing wrong with that, especially at the age we're all at now. And besides Joy, everybody else, the three of us are all in the same category. Well, you're not as old as us yet. So, but I mean, it helps to know, like, again, like there are others who have it and who have been through with it. But I also think in my head, like, the anxiety that you might have in your regular day life, you need to think hard about having it in general, like stupid stuff. Like I got to do the dishes. I got to do, when there is anxiety such as thinking about September 11th or thinking about being hit with a roadside bomb and attacked by the Taliban. So you got to, whenever I talk to guys like you guys, I think about my own life. I'm like, you need to shut up. and just like you need to just shut up and be happy. Like you're running 5 miles, he's rucking with
12 miles.
12 miles, and I'm strolling through the conservation area with my camera looking for owls, and it takes me like 6 hours to go 100 yards. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'm not training to be hard to kill. I'm training to like get up the stairs. But it is incredible that both of them. I want to just say thanks to both of you. Like John, I know, and John, like again, like the fact that you continue to come on and put up with me, and it's we really thank you guys for sharing these stories, because I think today it's kind of good to see that there are we got some good stories out there. The world may be a little screwy right now, so to speak, but we're not talking about that. We are here to talk about guts and grit. Remember the talk beforehand. So anyway, but
yeah, John, the fact you put up with Mark this long is
both of them. So it's even better. But Sean, I really can't thank you enough for coming on today. We're getting close to the time, although that went faster than I thought.
Hey, but I got something, Mark.
Okay, that's what I was waiting to. Go ahead, Johnny.
All right. So Sean, you mentioned something you did that day, and it reminds me of a lot of things that I have talked to several of my other Army buddies when I don't mean to say it, like when the shit hits the fan, right? And you're like in survival mode. You're going down. Like I'll never forget one of my worst ambushes earlier on in my career I got into, and it was pure chaos. I was scared. I was so scared. I was doing what I was supposed to do, what I was trained to do. I was shooting back. They were shooting at me. I was shooting back. And it became so overwhelming that it just became like a peaceful bliss. And I just accepted where I was. I believed in God. I was like, well, if this is it, this is it. And my concern then, and like you were concerned about helping that woman and getting her out. You weren't thinking, you just, like in this moment, you're not thinking of just like only of you. I'm only thinking of Sean. Sean needs to get out of here. You're looking at other people struggling and you start helping. I got into this moment of just pure bliss, and then I wasn't worried about myself anymore. I accepted, wow, I'm in a bad situation. I'm probably not going to make it out of here, but this person over to my left and this right, I'm going to do whatever it takes so they can get out.
Yeah.
No,
that's awesome.
That's actually something, Sean, I never thought of. I'm glad John pointed that out. That even there's most people would have been like, I'm getting out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Like I'm running over people to get out. Like Costanza, fire! And that Seinfeld when he wrecked everybody, one of my favorites. But anyway.
And Sean, I think I don't remember you talking about carrying that woman down the stairs that far. I remember you saying she had like the deer in the headlights look and was scared to go anywhere, and you grabbed her. But that's a lot going down 73 stairs.
Yeah, and she fell 1,000 times. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, think about like the highest high heels.
Sometimes I wear them, trust me.
Because that's how they dressed. They were, we were in suits, and they were in, whatever, their women's suits or whatever. But they had all high heels, on, and there was only 3 elevators. You couldn't take the elevator.
Well, and another thing I wanted to point out, and I know we're cutting it close, but that, both of you have overcome those obstacles using guts and grit, and have gone on to become, successful in both your careers and in your family lives. John, I want to say congratulations. I think I saw your daughter graduate from high school the other day. And Shawno, I know you have 2 coming up. No, they're not high school age yet, are they? Or am I that old?
My daughter's in high school. She's 14, she's freshman, Mashpee High School.
All right, but the moral of my story is that, despite going through incredible traumatic events, using a little guts and grit, sorry, I had to keep doing it, you can keep going. And to anybody out there watching, who might be down on their dumps or who might think I'm against odds I can't overcome, I would say that, you guys are both great examples of can be done. I'm babbling.
So Mark, something I just want to add to that to emphasize more guts and grit, especially with you, Sean, is it took guts and grit to survive such a thing, right? Mm-hmm. But then you gotta go ahead and grind it out afterwards. It's what happens afterwards. All that time for you to go ahead and get that sharp pain, that incident to go ahead and start to dull for you to cope and move forward, right? So that takes so much guts and grit to go ahead and just, continue to push on versus when you get down in those dark places, you could make some bad choices, right? We all know somebody or people that do make permanent decisions with temporary problems, right? So look at the success we are now, Sean, in life. Just like I'm not going to say I'm successful. I consider myself just fortunate, but where you are in life, if we measure our successes, you're married, you got kids, you've endured. You've proven to have guts and grit to go ahead and push on with life in a positive way.
Sean, yeah, I mean, I would say most of that's behind me. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that anxiety anymore.
Awesome.
I look at every day as, a new day, new opportunity. I don't have that constant stress anymore, but, man, I had it for a long time and it was tough. And like I said, the hardest part is nobody really knew what was going on. Because I didn't want to go, tell everybody, this is what's going on in my head. And, but I mean, like I said, I went through a million doctors and, they just didn't seem to, they understood what I was going through, but at the end of the day, they can't help you. You just got to work through it. So.
Well, Sean, we're glad to hear. Sean, another thing that I think I recall, were you a member of any football teams when you were younger that went undefeated?
Sure.
That went undefeated?
Yes, sir.
Sean and I were on the 1991 undefeated Dean Red Demons. We like to throw that out every now and then. But listen, Sean, seriously, I can't thank you enough for coming out today. I think we're just reaching to the end of the hour here, and I know you guys both have stuff to do. I know John's got to go out and run rucksacks and make me feel even worse about how lazy I've been lately. John, before I ever get you down here, I'm going to be in shape. Every day I'm like, I can't host a show with Melson and look like this much longer. So, but boys, I really.
Think when I first met Randy, he was like 175
right, we don't need to tell these stories. We don't need to tell these stories.
Yeah.
Those days are
ripples on the stomach.
Yeah. Now we got ripples on the stomach, but they're in a bulbous. Now I got a bad case of what I call the Dunlap's disease, and that's my stomach Dunlaps over my pants. So we're working on it here in the office. We're trying to cut out going out to lunch and anyway. But listen.
Up and downstairs.
Yes. Thank you all for tuning in once again to Guts and Grit. This was episode 4. Of course, we had Sean Pierce. Sean survived September 11th. And of course, our co-host, John Melson, and my co-host, Joy. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. What else am I missing? Podbean. And of course, we're on all the places where you get your podcast apps. You can join us next week for our second special guest. We are having Officer Jimmy McSorley from the LAPD, also known on social media as Naco Nolan. You can catch Detective McSorley in Netflix's Vanishing of the Cecil Hotel. He's also a jiu-jitsu practitioner, so we're going to be talking about how he uses that to kind of get by in life also. But we can't thank you all enough for tuning in on behalf of myself, Noah, our engineer, Joy, and John. Thank you all so much. Johnny, you have any final words? Or Sean, do you have any final words?
God bless America. We need it right now.
All right. How about you, Johnny?
Thank you.
You know me, Mark. I'm just going to go ahead and tell everybody stay out there grinding and train to be hard to kill.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in to Guts and Grit.
Thank you, guys.
See you all soon, guys. Have a great day.
Guts and Grit. Like, subscribe, comment, share,